were one of the true hardcore EA fans who stuck on with the EA press conference at E3 last year, you would remember this little game called Unraveled. In between all the faff with FIFA and all the sports games that nobody cares about, we had this little gem of a game which had a pretty interesting presentation. I think what was most memorable about this presentation was the enthusiasm and the emotional connection that the developers had with this game. You could really tell that the guy who was presenting it was absolutely shitting himself and racked with nerves just standing up in front of all those people, but he did it anyway because he was so passionate for his project. Well, Unraveled is finally upon us, and if you have Origin access on the PC, you can actually play the first 2 levels of this game before it comes out tomorrow on February the 9th. So what's it all about then? Well, Unraveled is a 2D puzzle platformer where you play as a little character called Yarny, who's made out of one string of yarn or wool or whatever you want to call it. He looks quite cutesy or devilish, depending on which way you look at it. Some people think he looks scary as hell, and some people think he looks like the most cutest thing ever made. Personally, I think he looks quite cute, but I can see where the people who think he looks a little bit intimidating are coming from. He has got almost devil horns after all. Now before I go any further, I just want to mention that this is probably one of the best games I've seen that's come out recently since Star Wars Battlefront. I mean, Star Wars Battlefront's obviously one of the best looking games on the market, but that's a first person shooter. In terms of how 2D puzzle games look, this has got a really pretty aesthetic. Now this is something that puzzle games tend to nail. I mean, there's games like Limbo and Braid that absolutely nail the aesthetic and look really, really good in their own right, but this game really nails the fantastical sort of theme. It's got a really, really strong depth of field effect, which really adds to that sense of fantasy, of almost like you're wandering around in a fantasy world. And the lighting again is absolutely incredible. I'm not quite sure what engine this is running on. I'm not sure if it's Frostbite. A lot of the EA games that have come out recently have been on Frostbite, so I'm not entirely sure, but nevertheless it's a very, very, very pretty game. So what does it like to play? Well, the controls are fluid and pretty simple. You press A to jump, you move left and right. You can hold left trigger to grab onto your yarn, and that means that you can like abseil up or abseil down. You hold you press right trigger to slingshot like a lasso of your yarn towards anchor points that are far away from you. You can hold B to pull objects backwards and forwards. So the controls are pretty simplistic and not really that hard to master. They're really fluid as well. When you press a button, stuff happens. It's not mushy in any way that I know a few other platformer games have been the culprit of. So when you're playing, what are you going to be doing for the majority of your time? Well, advancing through the level and solving puzzles, I guess. You move from left to right as a normal platformer would, using the environment to solve certain puzzles and advance your progression. Now you can use your yarn to do a variety of things. You can anchor it to certain points in the environment and swing across gaps. You can create bridges using yarn, and then if you go into the center of them and push down, you can then almost turn it into like a trampoline and trampoline up, and you can use all of these different ways to navigate through the level. Now this is just in the first level and the second level, because from what I've played through Origin Access, we only have access to the first 2 levels. In the full game you'll get access to loads more levels than what I've played, so there's probably going to be some more complex puzzles in there, but from what I played in the first 2 episodes or chapters or levels or whatever you want to call them, the puzzles weren't that challenging. They were quite simple and easy. Now the way that you access these levels I actually found to be quite enjoyable and quite interesting. It's got almost like a hub system. If you've ever played the old Lego games you might understand what I mean. It's where you have like a central hub environment that you can wander around and do side activities in and stuff, and then to access the different levels you go through doors or whatever. Like in Lego Star Wars you had the main hub of the Mos Eisley Cantina, and then to access each individual level you went into a door and then another door. So to pick which level you wanted to do you actually had to interact with the game. Unraveled is kind of similar. You start out you have like a hub world of your owner's house, which is like an old woman who knits a lot, and she drops a red ball and that becomes Yarny. It's almost like Toy Story where the yarn comes to life. So the hub level is her house, and you can navigate the house using your skills, so grappling onto anchor points and making bridges and trampolines and stuff. So you navigate around the house to find photo frames, which if you go up to and interact with, you can access the level. I found that to be quite interesting. There's not many games that have come out recently that really do that. I think Assassin's Creed Revelations was kind of like that, with the certain doors in the Animus, and it was all a bit weird. But if you want a better example, look at the Lego games. That's kind of similar to what this is. So from playing the first few hours of the game, what are my impressions of it? Well, I have to say I enjoyed it a hell of a lot, and really, I'm not a massive fan of platformers. I tend to get bored quite quickly, and that was the same for me in this game. I did get bored quite quickly after only an hour or so. So if you're somebody like me who doesn't play a lot of platformers, maybe this game isn't for you. It's not really a platformer that changes up the game a lot. It's kind of just very similar to other platformers. You end up doing the same things, just in its own sort of way, if that makes sense. But if you're a fan of platformers, then I can definitely say with confidence that you are going to enjoy this game. It does everything that a platformer needs to do, and it does it exceptionally well. It runs well, it plays well, it's fun, and it's got a beautiful aesthetic and soundtrack, which if you're into all of that atmospherical, emotional story stuff, you are going to enjoy massively. But anyway, that's been my first look at Unraveled. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe down below, and leave a comment describing what you think of the game. If you've played it, let me know what you think of it, and if you are looking to get it, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Anyway guys, I've been MajorMeteor, and I'll catch you in the next video.